the most important thing that the founder must do, because you will be keep knocked down. This was just the first time, and I have had many more during the journey. So there are always people who are trying to push you down and keep you there. So you have to be able to just stand up and move forward.
Keep going. Stand up.
Welcome to WITT. Hi, I'm Megan. I talk with founders, investors and operators working in tech. My aim is to inspire you with their stories and perspectives. Through this podcast, I want to amplify the voice of women working in tech. If you want to support WITT, then make sure you follow us on your favourite podcasting app. Then you won't miss any future episodes.
Today's guest is Anna, a Finnish entrepreneur and founder of We Encourage, which uses an AI chatbot called AinoAid, providing 24/7 support to victims of domestic violence. Hi Anna, welcome to WITT. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Megan. Great to be here.
Yay. Okay, I would love to kick off our conversation with a lightning round. Is that okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Let's jump right into it. What's one word that drives your work every day?
I would say the passion.
Passion.
Yes.
Nice. Second question. What's a tech tool you couldn't live without?
GPT models.
Makes sense. Me too, honestly. What's the bravest decision you've made as a founder?
Founding the startup in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, just true. This is very true. What is one place in the world you dream of launching Anno next?
I think the North America would benefit from our solution.
Yeah, definitely. Number 5. What's a big misconception people often have with gender-based violence?
They think that it doesn't happen in Finland or it's not that big of a deal.
If your mission had a tagline, what would it be?
My mission or our mission?
Our mission, let's say.
My founder mission, just do it.
Just do it. Okay. Love it. And then what is your personal definition of impact?
Creating something that changes the status quo.
Okay. Yeah. I like it. And then number 8, what's the biggest lesson you've learned from users or survivors?
They are so resilient, and I would say that they are. I don't know the word in English because it doesn't have the good translation, but they are the definition of Finnish sisu.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. And then what would you say courage means to you in one sentence?
To go towards the fear.
Okay. Nice. I like it. And then the last question for the lightning round is, if you had to describe your entrepreneurial journey in 3 emojis, what would they be?
Probably the tree, the peach emoji and arrow up, because sometimes it feels there is this Finnish saying of climbing up to the tree with your butt forward.
Hey, got it. I understand. That makes sense.
Sometimes it feels like you are trying to do something and you do it so hard way that it's almost like you are climbing up the tree.
Got it. I like it. Very nice. Well, that was great. Thank you so much for answering my lightning round questions. And now let's move on to your journey, right? So your background is in fashion and retail originally, I believe.
Yes.
What did you learn from that industry that shaped you as a founder now?
the interest in trends. So basically from the fashion, I was always interested more on the trends. What are the things that are happening and what are influencing how for example people start clothing themselves and how the designers do the fashion collection. So that was my passion. And because technology is so big part of the trends and shaping the world and how we interact with each other and so forth, my interest towards the technological improvements in AI and blockchain basically led me towards establishing the We Encourage. So it's kind of like the trends is something that it's also what is like personally passionate for me.
Okay. And would you say that kind of background, that those industries made you a better founder or a worse founder or like in the middle?
I think it helped. It helped me because when I was studying the fashion, my bachelor's thesis was about how trends emerge. And then I also was involved in the fashion industry through my aunt, and also I was working in a clothing store. So basically understanding how you run a business, retail business. Of course, it helped me as a store manager. I had to be responsible for budgeting and purchasing clothes. So of course that helped me as a founder. And I also went to studying after a while accounting and international business. So all of those kind of combined helped me to understand what are the important parts from the financial aspect on building a business.
Yeah, it makes sense. It does make a lot of sense because there's so many aspects in those industries that are very similar to running a company, running a startup. But let's talk about your company now, right? So We Encourage was founded in 2019, I believe.
Yes.
So it's an AI-based service providing 24/7 psychological support to victims of domestic violence. And why did you choose this problem to solve? What was the reasoning behind it? Why are you so passionate about it?
Yes. So it all started basically in 2016 when I saw a documentary about the rapper called Sonita. It came from a Finnish television channel Yle. And in the documentary, the Sonita wanted to be a rapper, but she had escaped Afghanistan to Iran. And it's not that easy for women or girls to pursue their passion. So it was basically forbidden for her to be a rapper, but she had help, and the documentary maker, Iranian documentary maker, wanted to make a film about her and her passion. And during the documentary, her family was about to sell her into marriage so that her brother could get money for his weddings. And the documentary maker ended up buying her free from her family with 2,000 euros, got her a scholarship to United States, and nowadays she lives, I think she still lives there, and she's pursuing her passion for rapping about the women's rights and so forth. And it kind of shook me to the core. Just a year earlier, I had my own baby girl, and it kind of struck me very hardly that if she would have been born in, for example, in Afghanistan, she would be just a commodity. So how privileged we are here in Scandinavia, and what our great grandmothers have done paving the way for us. And I see that we white females, we don't always understand how hard others are having the challenges. And I think we need to do something as white Scandinavian females, because we have the tools and we have the status to do something. And I'm aware of this white feminism, white savior thingy, which I think it's a problem. So somehow this didn't leave me alone. And but because of my retail background and I had little kids and I was stay-at-home mom, I had my retail business, so I didn't do anything about it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But then I was already following, because of this interesting trend, that what's happening in AI and blockchain through the retail. And I started getting interested that what if we could use blockchain somehow to support and help girls. And in 2018, I got somehow involved with the blockchain organization here in Finland, and I heard about this pitching competition. And I started formulating the idea more of building a blockchain solution so that people could do donations, small donations, and by that helping the families financially to keep the girls at school instead of selling them for marriage with this one-time payment. And I got accepted to this pitching competition. I knew nothing about pitching or startup world, so I googled how to make a pitch deck, and I decided to join the pitching competition. And that basically was the starting point for taking the first step. And then I started digging deeper about the issue, because I thought that it's somewhere out there.
Yeah.
And I started little by little realizing that actually it's happening the girls with the immigrant background also here in Finland. And it shocked me that I heard that girls are disappearing from schools, and I heard about this female genital mutilation, and I started to understand that this is a huge problem which is not publicly available. And I became almost obsessed with researching and trying to understand the problem deeper. I even called to the Ministry of Justice, trying to understand that what kind of things people are doing, and I heard that they have done a memo and that's it. I got frustrated that, okay, what are the actual concrete things? And then I started contacting the NGOs. And I had the discussions with them, and they actually started telling me that, yeah, of course, the funding is always a problem, because I had kind of evolved with the idea that maybe if we help NGOs to get funding and donors to better understand where their money is spent, it would kind of financially help them. But Finland has very strict laws on fundraising, and it wasn't a good solution. But during the conversations, I started to realize, based on the professionals' explanation, that the bigger problem is that there is not enough discussion support, therapeutic and psychological support for those who are facing violence in their intimate relationship or in their close relationship. And then I started wondering, and this was back in 2018-19 when the GPT was not there yet, but it was emerging. And I started wondering that, have you considered having a chatbot which could provide answers to the frequently asked questions and basically provide support with the scarce resources, so that the professionals would have more time then to kind of walk them through when they meet them, because the resources are very scarce. And they said that yes, but they don't have the resources. So I was wondering, what if I start building this kind of solution? I started looking for people who could do this, and joined forces with them, and then I started reaching out to those who had survived domestic violence, and I started asking them that if there would be this type of service, would it be helpful for you? So this was basically the starting point of the whole journey. So it was basically just, I was led towards it based on this feeling that something needs to be done, and I was trying to kind of push it away a couple of years after the documentary, but it didn't leave me alone.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. And we're kind of directly leading into the whole how you built this company. What do you think a non-technical founder brings to the table that's often like overlooked?
Yeah, I think what I have noticed, and of course this is just my opinion, but I have noticed that sometimes, though, with the technical skills and ability, they're somewhat limited to what they know, what they can do, how they can build it. And I have noticed that sometimes someone who is not limited with the technical abilities, they can visualize and have a vision what's possible, but which would require someone to basically reach a bit out of their comfort zone and find new ways of building that solution. And this has been, at least in our case, proven to be the case. So many times the ones with the developing skills, they might know few of the programming languages, they might be limited, and many times those with the technical abilities, they might be a bit limited with their capability of kind of having the big vision. And I think this is a big benefit, because those who don't know what the limits are, they might require or have ideas which are possible, but if you look them just from the different angle, it's basically just having someone who is looking things outside of the box. And I think Walt Disney was very good in this kind of sense when he required people to dream big enough and then doing. And I think Steve Jobs was doing this similar type of thing, that you basically push people a bit further. And I think in that sense, sometimes it might be even better if you have people who complement each other, who don't necessarily have the same skill set, because then it might be beneficial. Those who are non-tech, if you are involved in tech, I would recommend that you at least try to understand what coding is and how
it vaguely works.
How it affects one thing, and what basically are the limitations. So at least understanding, for example, what it means that things need to be commanded, and what are the rulings and such.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I feel like it would just make it a lot easier to communicate with
and
the
there is
more
a very
technical
good course,
people.
for example, on if someone is interested in AI, this basic course from Aalto University, these elements of AI. So you can educate yourself pretty much if you're interested.
Definitely. Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about, so you talked about finding your purpose and building resilience, and like, how do you know you've found yours, and what does like resilience look like for you, like, day to day?
How I found my purpose is basically, it started from the documentary, and then I was listening YouTube videos, and I read the book by Judith Orloff. So she's talking about these empaths, and she was telling how she found her purpose by having this kind of like pushing feeling towards something that she didn't want to do. And when I had seen this documentary, and I realized that this was kind of like pulling me towards this, but I didn't want to do it. So then I started to kind of lean in a bit that why I don't want to do it. And I started going through that, okay, what are the reasons why I don't want to do this? I noticed that I'm interested in technology. So somehow I wanted to do something with technology, but my limiting beliefs, because I wasn't a coder, or I didn't, I wasn't educated for technology. So I thought that, okay, who am I to build something with technology without the knowledge? And as you have been here in Finland, and you know how Finnish people are, we are very much kind of like, if you haven't had the degree on it, then you know nothing about it. So it's kind of like also this weird way of Finnish people thinking that you need to be very highly educated to be qualified to do something. But I kind of started going against that, and I started more and more trying to understand that, okay, what is actually pushing me against, why I'm not doing that, feels like I'm pulled towards. And when I did the decision that, okay, what the heck, I will start doing this, even though it's very scary, it seems almost impossible. I don't know what to do. It seems that I don't even know how to create a business around it, but somehow I feel that I need to do it. And I made the decision. It was a very relieving moment, and almost all of my passion and interest towards the retail disappeared. And it was very weird feeling, because I had been so passionate and kind of like very interested in that. And also I noticed that somehow I had to also go against, and this goes on the resilient side, that, for example, my aunt, who had been very much supporting me on the retail and fashion side, because it's basically her background more, she was kind of a bit against that. You shouldn't stop that, and you shouldn't be doing that. Don't go towards that. And I felt the feeling that, no, this is exactly what I need to go towards, because someone is telling me, no,
that you shouldn't.
You shouldn't. So it's kind of like, yeah, well, actually, I feel that I need to do this. And so basically, the Judith Orloff's advice that if you really feel that you don't want to do it, but you feel pulled towards it, you should go towards it. So it's kind of like somehow it's something that you are too afraid to do. So of course you have to go through the kind of like the fears. Why are you trying to talk yourself out of it?
Right. Okay, and this perfectly kind of leads me into my next question, which is, what would you say to someone who wants to do something meaningful, but isn't sure they have the right background for it?
Yeah, so when I think myself and my journey and the world where we are nowadays, who cares? If you have the interest, if you have the passion, you have all the knowledge available. So what I did in my case, I didn't have the right background. I was even questioning myself that how can I help women and girls without being a feminist, or without having ever volunteered in any NGOs, or being even interested in anything like that. So I was questioning myself quite a lot. But if you don't have the right background, but you are interested in doing it, just
passionate
start searching.
about it.
I did the first full year I was just researching and trying to understand the problem and trying to understand if it even needs to be solved. So basically, don't start and establish something. Do your research, try to understand the problem, because when you start doing that, you start realizing, are you actually interested in it enough to go through all the ups and downs and hardships. So basically just start educating yourself, because if you don't have genuine interest, it basically fades away quite quickly.
It's quite hard to stick to something if you're not genuinely interested in the problem or whatever it is. That makes a lot of sense. I want to dig into your frameworks now, right? So in your prep questions, you said focus and making things happen. What do you mean by that?
Yes.
What does that mean for you?
Yeah. So as a person who is very easily interested and excited about things, it's quite easy to distract yourselves. And especially when you are building something new, you might get easily distracted. People are contacting you, everyone wants to talk with you and have collaboration and so forth. So what I noticed in the beginning, that you quite easily get, for example, your calendar filled with different kinds of meetings which don't take you further, or people give you different kinds of collaboration opportunities that are not actually taking you forward, and you might be distracted to do things that are not actually moving you forward. So it's very demanding, especially if you start things alone. There are so many things you have to take notice. So the first lesson that I needed to learn is to start focus on just, for example, one thing at a time. And there is very good book called The One Thing, so which basically helps you to narrow down that what is the one thing that by doing that thing you basically solve all the other to-do list items. So this is I think the one of the most important things, because I'm a big believer in this, that you have all the time. It's just how you actually how you frame your
use it.
time, use it. So of course there are busier times, but then you just have to do things. But also this is, if you are proactive and if you do things in a focused manner, usually things don't pile up. So it's kind of like do the things and focus on things. I'm not perfect with that, but it's something that I'm learning. So I get, for example, easily distracted when an email comes. I want to respond it quite quickly. So it might be sometimes would be better to postpone it a bit to not be distracted. But still, it's the focus is very important.
Yeah. Especially for a founder, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Yeah, most people are very easily distracted, so it makes sense to kind of focus on
to say no,
what's
basically
important.
Yeah.
I like that. It's very good. And now we've entered the part of the podcast which I like to call the zigzag zone. And so basically, I want to know where you're zagging and everyone else is zigging. So you talked a bit about alternative ways to fund your startup. Let's go into detail about that. What are we talking about?
So when I started, it was a bit confusing for me as being someone who had already understood and learned about the financial parts of the business and budgeting and everything, that how basically you need to create money to keep the business running. And for me it was a bit weird how everyone in the startup scenery were focusing that how you can get money from someone else's pocket. Basically you were trying to do the pitching and trying to find the investors and it's completely its own rabbit hole that you can get quite lost if you start focusing purely on that. And as I was building something that was not that sexy and attractive from the VC mindset, it's not that easy to sell for investors, and the whole concept of valuating your startup with imaginary numbers felt a bit weird for me. How is this actually working? And I somewhat realized that this is also a business of its own, to create a bubble and basically some times the startup is just taken and pumped up with money so that it can be then merged or sold. So it's kind of like its completely own world. And not always so basically maybe fair. It's also a way just to pump up and make money. And I started to realize that, okay, this is not probably the playground that I should be too much focusing on. I learned about the term bootstrapping, which basically means that you try to get the business built with what you have. So you for example have your own side job still and you scrape in the money that you can get to survive. And then I realized that okay, there are different ways of doing this. So we, for example, got small funding with the collaboration project, and we were able to build the first solutions. We got this very generous offer from Get Jenny so that we could build our MVP, and they basically offered their platform for us. So these are just alternative ways that you can keep going even though you don't have the money. And also something that people don't think that much is that the earlier you take the investors in, the bigger portion of your company you usually have to give away with very low valuation. So it's also a strategic decision when you bring
in the money,
in the people. And I got very good advice from my uncle, who is also a business angel himself, that Anna, you don't need the money, you need people who are able to help you move forward. So it's much more valuable to gather a good network of people around you. It might bring you more monetary value in the long run than just the small tickets that you get as a funding. Also, we were able to get into this EU funding consortium, and we got the EU funding, so we were able to finance our next phase of the solution and even pay some salaries for us. So there are different routes to build your solution, so people shouldn't focus too much on the VC and
on one particular aspect. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think those are some really good options for any future founders. Definitely a really good idea. But now it's story time. So I want to know what happened with a judge, right? What happened with that? How did that happen?
Yeah. So when I was doing my first ever pitching on the stage, and it was completely out of my comfort zone. So you can imagine a blockchain forums event room almost entirely full of tech guys, few ladies, including me, and my topic is quite different from everyone else, considering that it's about the girls being forced into marriage. And I was doing my pitching, and during the pitching I was explaining the numbers of the problem, that there are millions of girls who are experiencing this child marriage, and I think the youngest of them might be just 8 to 9 years old, which is quite staggering. And now we are back in, I think in Afghanistan, they have the rule that 9 years old are they can legally marry them. So it's actually a really big problem. And after my pitching ended, and there was the time for the judges to have the questions, the only female judge in the board was starting her judgment with the fact that, okay, how stupid are you? Who would sell their daughters to marriage? And I was crazy. I was not that much offended, but more of like pissed off that how ignorant, how can she even do that when there has been the numbers, what's happening here? And it kind of like it was the time that it kind of like sparked the light in me, and I decided that, okay, if there are people who are so arrogant that they can humiliate a person on stage for bringing these kind of things up by calling them stupid, not even asking that are these numbers real or something like, but just bluntly telling someone that you
saying that you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Basically just canceling. I don't know if this is the correct term, but I think it could be nowadays called canceling, that I'm bringing up the problem and she's saying that I'm just stupid. But luckily there were other judges who were actually male, all of them. So I want to bring this up because too many times males are blamed for things. And
interesting. Very
women,
funny.
I have had very great men who have been supporting me throughout the journey, and they actually understood that what I was trying to kind of like frame here, and they told me that you should start a movement around this, that this is very important, and please keep going and move forward. And one of the members of the judge then helped me by opening his network to me continue and learning and understanding more about the issue and so forth. But yes, it's also something that when you consider the resilience, if you are on stage and you are doing something that is I was very much out of my comfort zone, because I was among people who are more knowledgeable than I am. So it was already frightening to explain my idea to people who know more about the whole technology than I do. But just keep going. So if someone basically says to you that you are stupid, just kind of ignore that and keep going, keep moving forward if you believe. And this goes again, this pursuing your passion and knowing what you are meant to do. If you get knocked out immediately, just stand up, because it's kind of also, I feel that it's the way to rehearse your bounce back muscle. And I think that's one of the most important thing that the founder must do, because you will keep knocked down. This was just the first time, and I have had many more during the journey. So there are always people who are trying to push you down and keep you there. So you have to be able to just stand up and move forward.
Keep going. Stand up and keep going. Love it. Well, that was super interesting. I really loved your story. And we've now come, sadly, to the end of the podcast, but I have 3 final questions for you, which are, imagine it's 2035. What does your company look like?
I think we are going to be global. So we have millions of users, and we have this amazing ecosystem of partners who are collaborating. So we have the social sector, the police, the healthcare sectors, and then the private and NGOs and all working together, so that those who need help, they have our service as a one-stop center from where they can get the help that they need, and we have this network in a way that people don't need to try to figure out themselves where to get the help, and we have the resources for them to support the healing journey as well.
Okay, and how can listeners follow along with your journey?
Of course, they can go and check our services on our website, AinoAid.fi, and from there they can find our social media links. So the preferred method, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and so forth. So they can follow our journey there.
Great. And then how can listeners be useful to you?
By testing the chatbot, having conversations with it, and providing us feedback if they wish to have more knowledge in the knowledge base.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast. I'm really looking forward to following along with your journey, and of course, we encourage this journey as well. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this week's show. To make sure you don't miss next week's episode, follow us on your favourite podcasting app. Do consider leaving a review, as it helps the podcast tremendously.